And we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Royce Eddings, Royce in the House YouTube channel. Tonight we've got Dan McNew. Dan used to be my regular co-host. He's been busy doing other projects lately. He's got a site set up. Uh, Dan, just the facts man, has a solar eclipse site set up where he's got like 45,000 members right now. And we're also going to be introducing you to a solar eclipse expert. And his name is Gordon Telepun, MD, and he knows he's going to have all kinds of slideshows. First of all, we want to know, what does the audience want to hear about the solar eclipse? Because he's got a lot of slides he can show on different aspects of it. So thank you all for joining me. We really appreciate you all being here. If you're new to the channel, when you get a chance, go check the rest of the channel out. We've got, I think it's 324 videos available for you to watch at any time. This is I'm really excited about tonight, though. We're going to be talking about the solar eclipse. And Dan, what do you want to add to this before we get Gordon on?
Well, Gordon's a great guy. I tell you what, he knows everything about eclipses. You know, I first found out about Gordon back in 2017.
Awesome.
Before the 2017 eclipse.
Okay.
He developed a really good timer app for the solar eclipse called the Solar Eclipse Timer.
God, and that's great.
I used it in 2017, and it uses GPS to know where you're located at, and it automatically calculates all the eclipse times, no matter where you're at. And it makes announcements on the app telling you what to do, what to expect.
Okay.
It's a great app, and I encourage everybody to go down to solareclipsetimer.com and download that thing from the Apple Store or the Play Store.
Okay, that sounds good.
And also want to give a shout out to my fiance, Joanne. I told you I'd give you a shout out. and also I want to give a shout out to my daughter, who's, I'm not going to tell her age, but it's her birthday today. So I want to wish her a happy birthday.
Oh, that's great, Dan. I want to thank you, Dan. Dan approached me. Dan used to co-host really about every week, about a year ago. I think it's been about a year, and oftentimes Michael Nolan was here, and there was some other ones here. There was Lou Mars, award-winning drummer, was a co-host with us at the same time, and things like that. We had a good time, and then you wound up getting busy on some other projects, and Lou Mars took off with his new band. And Michael's been pretty regularly. He's in and out sometimes. Sometimes he'll miss a few shows in a row. But I want to thank you, Dan, for approaching me about doing this show tonight. I'm very excited about it. It's something different. It's going to be kind of a nice change. I want to thank everybody that's in the chat so far. We've got Caitlin and Jeffrey Flint, James Watson, Gringo Pines, the Music Sanctuary, Eric Schultz, Dr. Rick's here, Sir James Bowie, Sinatra, Lennon White is here. And so we got a really good crowd, and it's just going to build as the night goes on. Right now we're going to stick with myself, Dan, who set this all up, and our special guest, the solar eclipse expert, which we'll be bringing on very shortly. And then later on, maybe when we move to the music part of it, and we're just talking about songs that relate to celestial things and the moon and things like that. Then if some others want to join us on, we can do that too. So Gordon, are you ready to come on? Okay, sure. Gordon, you are on. How are you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm great. Good evening, guys. I appreciate the opportunity, Dan, for inviting me on to do this.
No, you're very welcome. I'm glad to have you here. This is great.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to have you here. How did you get so interested in eclipses, Gordon?
So even as a child, I was interested in astronomy and the space program. But I'll tell you that the actual story, I grew up in New Jersey, and we were on summer vacation on the beach in New Jersey. It was in the summer. I was young. I don't remember the exact date of the eclipse. I was probably like 8 or something like that. Well, there was a total eclipse in Canada. And so since we were in New Jersey, we were in a partial eclipse. So, but my dad, I didn't know about it. I was young, but my dad knew about it. So he brought welding glasses on our summer vacation to the Jersey beach. And I remember as a little kid, I don't really remember looking at the eclipse, with through the welding glass. I just kind of remember the whole concept of doing it, and that just kind of stuck with me. And then as a child, I was always interested in astronomy. So I'm old enough to remember watching the NASA space launches back to Gemini. And then, of course, the first Apollo moonwalk, 11.
Right.
So for the longest time, I wanted to get to a total solar eclipse. I mean, I knew I wanted to do it, but the first one I could really get to when it, because I'm a physician, I'm a surgeon. So the first one that I could get to after all of my training and starting my practice and all that other stuff was in Africa in 2001. So that was my first one in Zambia, Africa.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what to expect here in California. I'm on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we're going to get, what kind of a partial or.
Yeah, I think it's about 20% on the West Coast, something like that.
Well, I know this is going to probably sound like a dumb question, but, I know that it's always so important to protect your eyes. Is that because with the sun partially eclipsed, it's kind of deceiving just how we're not supposed to look straight into the sun, period. But is it just kind of deceiving when it's partially eclipsed that it's not as dangerous as it was, normally? Is that?
Well, you can't look at the sun with your naked eyes on a normal day. It's too bright. I mean, you could take these tiny little peeks at it, but you avert your vision very quickly because it's so bright.
It's so bright.
So the thing about eye safety and wearing solar eclipse glasses during the partial phases is basically you have to, otherwise you can't see it. So nobody can really look at the sun no matter what the partial phase is. You can't look at the partial phases at a 98% eclipse. It's still too bright. It's uncomfortably bright.
Oh, okay.
The thing about eye damage is not so much for the casual observer, using solar eclipse glasses to look at the sun.
Okay.
It's for people who are using magnifying optics.
Gotcha.
So if you're magnifying through a telescope or binoculars or a long focal length camera lens, all of that solar energy is delivered to the eyepiece and then to your eyes.
Okay.
And it can burn your retina if you look at the partial phases unprotected, unblocked. So the rule... the rule about protecting your optics and protecting your eyes is to have a solar filter always on the front of the optics. You want to prevent the energy from getting into the system.
Gotcha.
So then the only time it's safe to look at the eclipse with your eyes is after second contact, when you're in full totality. It is safe to look at the corona with your eyes, and it's safe to look at the corona through unfiltered binoculars, but only during the time of totality. Only
total totality.
Yeah, only
can't have anything showing. Okay,
that's right. Only between second contact and third contact.
Gotcha. I'm real sensitive to that. I've been about 6 years ago. I was diagnosed with glaucoma.
Sure.
And so I have to take the drops, and I've had operations on both eyes where they try to vent them better because it's the pressure that builds up that damages your optic nerve, and so we had to vent my eyes. First we did 360s, then we did the other 360s later, just to try to get the pressure down in the normal range.
Right.
The normal range would be in the very low teens, which is where I've had it now for some time. But when I walked in there, I was 52 in the right eye and like 27 or something like that in the left eye, when I should have been in the teens. And so I was getting damage to my optic nerve, in particular on the right side, where my vision is not as... I can still read 20/25 with both eyes. Once in a while, 20/20, once in a while. But I don't have the I don't have the range on my right eye. It's a little more tunnel-like, Yeah.
Well, one of the things I think people... for some reason, people think that just because it's an eclipse, the sun is more dangerous.
Yeah,
the sun is not. It's not any more dangerous than it is any other day. The only problem is everybody's looking at the sun, during the eclipse. So
that was kind of my whole question a minute ago.
And
right.
I've heard people ask, well, how can I protect my dog's eyes? Well, does your dog normally look at the sun?
Good point.
And I saw a silly one today. Said, well, what about my goldfish? So
what about my goldfish?
It's not like it's some type of X-ray hitting us. It's just,
right.
It's the same old sun. It's just,
right.
You can just never look at the sun ever. You shouldn't.
I know there's always a lot more people watching that are in the chat, and I just want to encourage you, if you're watching the show, go ahead and jump in the chat and say hi. Everybody has to start somewhere when it comes to doing that.
Nothing to remember too about looking at the sun. And Gordon was talking about that through when you're using optics.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen what a magnifying glass can do to an ant?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you can burn it.
That's exactly what you're doing to your eyes. The same thing.
Doing to your eye. Okay.
So you don't want to do that. And these solar eclipse glasses are so plentiful right now. Well, right now I think they may be running short here in a few days, but
right.
They're cheap. There's no reason not to get one. They're very accessible. Right. So.
Okay, great guys. I'm gonna pop up this banner link real quick. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, Gordon, could you tell us a little bit about your solar eclipse timer? I'll tell you what, I used it in 2017 and it was perfect. I don't see how anybody can go to an eclipse without this timer on their phone.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting tool. Now, I'll tell you how and when it started. When I went to my first eclipse in 2001, I was determined to do good photography. I had read everything that Fred Espinick had published. And you got to remember, in 2001, we didn't have YouTube, so we didn't have all these educational videos out there. And the internet didn't have a lot of internet material on eclipses. So you had to order the books and read it. Well, what happened, Fred had published all of these wonderful pictures of the sequence of the eclipse and the corona and all that stuff. And remember, back then we were shooting with slide film. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, I practiced at home and I had my routine down. I did dry runs in my living room. And when I got to Africa in the eclipse, I was so overwhelmed by the atmosphere of what's happening in that final 2 to 5 minutes before the eclipse. I forgot my routine. So, I mean, I'm sitting there watching it and the eclipse starts and I get to my camera and start to take pictures. So at C2, I had missed the entire diamond ring and I had missed all of Bailey's beads. So, I mean, that means I'm 25 seconds late taking pictures because that whole sequence takes about 30 seconds. So then you're in totality and it's beautiful and just wonderful. And my first eclipse, it was 3 minutes and 53 seconds. And I'm kind of taking it all in. And then all of a sudden, it starts to get light in the sky because Bailey's beads are starting. So I run to my camera, I start shooting pictures. And again, I'm about 10 or 15 seconds late. So anyway, I got back to the States and I realized that you cannot time an eclipse with your watch. It's too overwhelming. It gets too dark. And I actually developed the first concept of an eclipse talking timer in 2002. I used it in 2002 at my second eclipse. And it ran back then on Windows Pocket PC because we didn't have mobile devices and it was completely manual. You couldn't geolocate and calculate your contact times. You had to get your contact times from a book of tables and then enter them manually. But it worked. We used it in 2002. The problem is when you're extrapolating your contact times from those maps, there's some error in that. So we were about 4 to 5 seconds off in 2002, but that's all changed now because in 2017 we reprogrammed it for mobile devices. Mobile devices are little computers, so it can do everything now. It does it all automatically. It's accurate down to tenths of a second, and it really helps people enjoy the eclipse. As Dan was saying, he used it in 2017.
So Gordon, if people go to this website here, they were able to access that timer.
So that website is basically an informational site
Okay.
with a
Okay.
bunch of screenshots of my timer, so they can really see what the screens are
Okay.
and what they do. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I've
Okay.
released an
Okay.
Eclipse preparation book, and that there's a bunch of screenshots of all the pages or a lot of the pages of the Eclipse preparation book, so people can see what that's about. And then on the site, if they are more interested in it after looking at all the screenshots, there are the hyperlinks, to go directly to the Apple Store, directly to go to the Google Store,
right,
and then the 3 ways to buy my book, which is a PDF, an Apple book, or an Android tablet books. So that's kind of like a landing page for people to get more.
Yeah. That's great information to, all you guys in the chat and people that'll be watching later. Check this site out. The Eclipse is going to be here on the 8th of April. So we're real close. And let's see, the 8th falls on next Monday.
Yes.
Yeah. A week from Monday is the total eclipse. Again, I'm just curious. I saw a little map that showed how much of an eclipse there'll be as a streak went across the sky to show you in different locations, And we all know it's going to be great in, Dallas, Fort Worth. And somebody just said they get the totality in Indiana where they live. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the chat back on here. Comments. And let's see. Well, maybe we'll take that down for now because that's where the comments go. Okay, hold on just a second, folks. Okay, there we go.
All right. One of the things about the partial eclipse, this eclipse will actually, including totality and partial, will cover the entire 48 United States. So every state can look at it. Most of it's going to be partial for most of the country, except for the totality.
Right. So. That sounds like a pretty large swath there, though, too, Dan.
It's almost it's about 40 miles wider than it was in 2017, I believe. It's like 118 miles wide. When I think in 2017, I think it was 71 miles wide.
Yeah, that's right, Dan. Yeah.
Wow.
And I also, people don't realize how fast that shadow is moving too. Yeah. That shadow is moving about 1,700 miles an hour.
1,700 miles an hour.
And you can actually see the shadow approaching you. It almost, to me, what it reminded me of when I was in Illinois, it looked like a thunderstorm was brewing.
Yep.
It looked like a thunderstorm was headed our way, but it's actually the shadow headed our way. So
that's right.
No kidding. Wow.
This time around, if the weather's good, I'm gonna have a drone shot. Not so much of the sun, but I want to get a good shot of the shadow coming towards us.
Yeah. And that reminds me, Dan and Royce. So I never talk about it in terms of my app because we're always talking about going to totality. But my app times a partial eclipse too. So if you have my app and you geolocate and you're out of the path and you have no intentions of getting in the path, the app will know that you're not in the path, and it'll only calculate 2 contact times. So it calculates C1 and C4, and then of course it calculates max eclipse. And then the app allows you to go into what's called the partial eclipse timer, and that will tell you what your maximum obscuration is going to be. And when it starts at C1, it will actually count up the percentages to max, and then it'll count down the percentages after max. But the thing that's even one more step sophisticated than that, it knows like what percentage your max is going to be. So it does partial phase phenomena announcements, Dan, up to what's appropriate for your degree of partial phase. So if you're at a 50% partial phase, it probably only announces temperature change, pinhole projection, and maybe sharp and fuzzy shadows. But if you're at a 90% phase, it will, announce temperature changes a couple of more times and, announce other things. So the amount of obscuration you're getting to changes what the app will announce. But you can use it in the partial phases.
That's very good. Yeah.
I never really have a chance to talk about that because obviously we're always talking about being in the path.
Yeah.
Say, Gordon, could you maybe give the people in the chat an example of some of the slides that you could go through with them, depending on what they're most interested in? And you might find out that we're not real familiar with the topic, you know.
Yeah. So
we might want to rely on your judgment to show the things that you think would be the most interesting to, well, novices.
yeah. Do you want me to share my screen and talk about the partial phase phenomena first?
Yeah, no, I think that would be fantastic. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. I have.
Okay.
That might get some people.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, everybody watching the show. These are all slides over here on the left that Gordon can show and talk about. It just depends on, you know, what we're most interested in.
So do you see the slides?
Yes. Speaker information's up right now. Yes.
Yeah. So these are the 5 eclipses that I've been to. 24 would be my 6th. So it's, Africa twice, the Mediterranean Sea, then Tennessee, and then Argentina.
Oh, I see.
And then in terms of what I do for helping people get ready, this is a picture of my app. This is the cover of my book. And then I have a YouTube channel with hours of information that I've made about eclipses. And, a really popular YouTube video right now is my video on how to image Bailey's beads. That's been getting a lot of views, and I've been getting a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. Tonight's the first time I've ever heard Bailey's beads.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what we were talking about before. Anytime you have optics, you want your solar filters on the front of the optics, because like Dan was saying, this is the same concept of using a magnifying glass and burning an ant. Everything gets concentrated on your retina, and your retina does not have pain fibers, so you don't feel it like burning.
Oh, I see.
And then if you're going to be in a partial eclipse, you have to wear your glasses for the entire time. There is no time when there's going to be a totality, right?
Okay.
And then if you do the whole total eclipse from start to finish, this is basically the progression, starting up at C1, going through all the partial phases to diamond ring, Bailey's beads, the corona,
beads.
Bailey's beads on the other side, diamond ring, and then going all the way, to fourth contact. So that's what happens in an eclipse. Okay.
So Bailey's beads is right before you hit totality.
That's correct.
And right after you come out of it. Yeah.
That's correct. Because what Bailey's beads are is the last little bit of the photosphere of the sun coming through the uneven edge of the moon. So those light rays are coming between the valleys and the mountains of the moon. And as that continues to move, they get smaller and smaller. So they make little dots. And those are the Bailey's beads.
Okay. Interesting.
And so here's the path. It starts in the Pacific Ocean, hits the coast of Mexico, hits the border of Texas, exits Maine, and then exits Canada and finishes, in the Atlantic Ocean. Gotcha. So the thing about this eclipse, which is interesting, is there's a 4-minute totality duration all the way to mid-Indiana. So half of the path in the United States can get a 4-minute totality duration. And that's a big deal. I mean, to be able to go to an eclipse where you can get a 4-minute totality duration and not have to travel internationally is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And then this is what we were talking about before. If this is the umbra, there is a point in time where the whole North American continent is in the penumbra. And if you're in the penumbra, you're in some portion of a partial eclipse. So the entire country, basically except for Alaska, and I don't know if Hawaii gets it at all at the beginning of this, will see some form of a partial eclipse.
Okay.
And then just an overview for everybody what the contact times are. So you got to remember the moon is approaching the sun going from west to east.
Okay.
So it hits the western side of the sun as the moon is moving. But of course, the Earth is still rotating. And so since this whole thing takes 3 hours, the sun is setting to the west while the moon is moving to the east.
Mhm.
So first contact is when the moon first touches the sun. Second contact is when totality begins. Third contact is when totality ends. And then fourth contact is the end of the eclipse. And this whole thing takes just under 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, if you're in the path, there is that point in time between second contact and third contact that you can take your glasses off and look at the corona with your eyes, or even look at it with binoculars.
Yeah. Wow. I remember seeing video of people in the 2017 eclipse that were afraid to take their glasses off during totality. I thought, well, they're not seeing anything.
Right.
Right.
So let me show you these two slides. This is a little bit of science. I monitor the lux at these eclipses because one of the things that I'm interested in, and we can talk about it later, is how our eyes have, and our retinas and our brains have the ability to dark adapt. So this is a lux reading at the annular eclipse in New Mexico, when it got down to about an 89% obscuration. So an observing site on a clear day will generally be about 10,000 lux if you're looking just at the observing site. So in New Mexico, that lux dropped all the way down to 865 lux. So, I mean, this is like a 90% decrease in the ambient lighting. But the thing that's amazing is because this happens over an hour and a half, we have this amazing ability to dark adapt. So even at a 90% obscuration, because you've been watching it for an hour and a half, you can't see the difference in the ambient lighting. So this is just the opposite of like going from a lighted hallway into a dark movie theater. It's dark all of a sudden because it's happened instantly. But if that happened over an hour and a half, if you could be in a room where somebody could dim the lights over an hour and a half, that's what an eclipse is. So you have this amazing ability to dark adapt. So you don't even know it's getting dark. And at a total eclipse, the lighting goes that last, 900 lux. And this is data from 2019 in Argentina. During totality, the lux was just under 2 at the observation site. Now, to give you an idea of how dim that is, it's not like night, like black pitch night. That's about the lux of being outside in your backyard under a full moon. So there's some general lighting around, but it's dark. You know what I mean? It's not pitch black, though.
Right.
Are there any questions generated by that you want to talk about?
Well, does anybody in the chat have any questions?
I'll tell you my observation for 2017. As we neared totality, it's probably the last. Well, even though your eyes do adjust to it, you can tell there's something going on.
Yeah.
Because suddenly your shadows look a little different.
Yes.
Just the ambient light looks odd.
Yep.
And Now I heard something this time around that I never heard before about wearing red or wearing green.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing a green shirt tonight, because we're going to talk about the Purkinje effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, here's a little slide. This is just an overview of temperature changes. So, a lot of thermodynamic stuff happens because the moon is completely blocking the sun. So when you block all the electromagnetic energy from the sun, that radiant energy, which heats the earth and causes our ambient temperature, decreases. So the temperature goes down, and you can monitor that. You could do a simple graph of temperature versus time and monitor that, and you'll feel the temperature drop. For a normal eclipse, it's about 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the concept of, doing pinhole projection through anything that makes any small circle will project the crescents, reversed left to right and upside down. It's the concept of pinhole projection camera or camera obscura. Since light always has to travel in a straight line, light from the top of the candle ends up being at the bottom, and light from the bottom of the candle ends up being at the top, and the left and right is also reversed. So it's easier to see when you kind of look at like this little statue. The top of the statue ends up on the bottom of the statue ends up on the top, and the left and right gets reversed. So crescents are the same way. They're reversed left to right as the partial phases continue, and then they flip. So on one, before totality, they're facing one way, and after totality, they're facing the other way, but they're flipped left to right.
Okay, we have a question here.
Okay.
Can that person put their cat on a camera for a second? What? My question is, can that person put their cat on a camera for a second?
Yeah, we hear a cat meowing in the background.
Not anymore.
Okay. Hey, Dan, so this is what this is what you were talking about before. Even though you might not see it getting darker, there's actually two things that happen at an eclipse that make the lighting look different to you. And one is the concept of sharp and fuzzy shadows, which I love this phenomena. And it's the concept that you'll see people post pictures post eclipse on their social media, and they'll say something general like, my shadows were weird, or my shadows were this, or my shadows were that, but they don't really understand the concept. Well, the concept is, after about a 50% eclipse, if you make a shadow on the ground that is in line with the crescent behind you, at that point, the crescent is throwing light to the earth that's more linear. So your shadows are sharp when you're in line with the crescent. But 90 degrees to the crescent, your shadows are fuzzy, because at that point, the light from the crescent is broad enough that it can cross and make your edges of your shadows fuzzy. It's basically the same terminology as umbra, penumbra that we use for the moon's shadow as your arm shadow on the ground.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the concept of the creation and dissipation of convective clouds. Now, of course, this is not storm clouds. These are the clouds that are like in the summertime when you wake up in the morning and there's not a cloud in the sky. But then by lunchtime, there's these white puffy clouds in the sky.
Okay.
But they are caused by heating the ground, and these warm thermals from the ground that are invisible, but they're moist, rising, warm thermals. They rise to the boundary layer, and they condense and make clouds. But during an eclipse, that energy gets turned off. So these clouds are reliant on a continuous supply of that moisture. And when it gets turned off, they will evaporate. Now, again, this is not big rain clouds. These are convective clouds.
That's exactly what happened to us in Southern Illinois in 2017.
Right. And then, of course, we're humans and we're watching the eclipse and we know it's happening, but animals don't know anything about the eclipse. They just think it's getting darker. So animals will start their nighttime behavior. One of the most interesting ones is, and the easiest ones to see if you're in a natural environment, is crickets will start to chirp like it's getting to be nighttime, about 10 or 15 minutes before second contact. You'll see birds flying into the sky in these little flocks as if they're going to their nighttime resting.
Right.
And then the final thing before shadow bands is what we were talking about before, is this is the Persei effect. Now, this is a little complicated, but I'll try to simplify it. We have two kinds of photosensitive cells in the back of our retinas. One is the cones, and they absorb in three colors, green, red, and blue. And the other is the rods, and they only absorb in one color, kind of in the bluish green. So rods are considered black and white by our brains, but our brains take this cone color information and they convert it to the colors we see in our surroundings. Well, what happens in an eclipse, if you look at this diagram right here, we have this period of time for about 5 minutes where we're in a zone of vision called the mesopic zone. And what that means is our cones, which are our color vision cells, don't have enough photons to fire. So your colors start to get bland, and then you're starting to kick into night vision, which is black and white. So what you see is the Purkinje effect. And this is simulated because you can't take a picture of the Purkinje effect. But everything in your surroundings takes on this grayish, silvery hue, and the colors become muted. So what I've been telling people this year, and it's become popular to talk about, is I want people to go to their eclipse site wearing bright colors, reds and greens and yellows and blues. And the reason is I realized between my eclipse experience in 2017 and my eclipse experience in 2019, which was in the winter in Argentina, for you to see the Purkinje effect, you need target color, because this is a biologic effect. If you're in a brown field with no bright colors, you can't see it because brown is not going to get browner. But you need your neighbors to have bright colors so that you can get a perception of like how bright their red shirt is 30 minutes before C2. And then about 5 minutes before C2, you'll be able to see with your eyes that their shirt just doesn't have that color pop it did 20 minutes ago. And that's the Purkinje effect.
Okay.
And then the final kind of big partial phase phenomena is shadow bands.
Yes.
And shadow bands are caused by the fact that this last little slit of light coming through the atmosphere can get perturbed by the moving atmosphere. And it's either refraction or wave front adding and subtracting, but it causes these little gray shadows on the ground that kind of race along, and they're very low contrast. But about 2 minutes before totality, you can see them, and then they fade away because it gets too dark. And then right after C3, you can see them again, but then they fade away because it gets too light and you lose the contrast.
Okay.
And Dan, one other piece of science I'll share with you. This is another reason why the lighting, when you get to be like greater than a 90% eclipse, becomes weird. One is the shadows, but it's not necessarily the ambient light. The light that reaches Earth in that last about 5 minutes, 10 to 5 minutes before totality, becomes redder. We're red shifted in our ambient light. And that's because the big sun has a temperature range at 6,300 Kelvin. But the limb of the sun is redder. It's about 5,000 degree Kelvin. So when we're lit by just the limb of the sun, we are lit by more red light than normal. Okay. And I've measured this 2 times. I measured it at the total eclipse in 2019. And then this is at the annular eclipse. So this is monitoring the 3 frequencies of light coming to the Earth and showing the percentage difference during annularity. So you see how red bumps up and blue and green goes down? Because we are bathed by red light right then. And that's what makes another thing that makes your surroundings look so weird.
Yeah, it's almost as if the saturation is turned up, is what it looks like when you're doing photo adjustments on your computer.
Yeah.
Turn that saturation up. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Too much saturation. It just really.
Yeah. And then when you get to the Purkinje effect, it's the opposite. It's like a decrease in saturation and like an increase in the grays.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a quick overview of the partial phases. Those are all the things that you can enjoy between C1 and C2. And the other thing that Dan was talking about, my app gives you reminders to observe for that. So like 3 times between that hour and a half, it makes this little announcement that says observe for temperature changes. And when you hear that, it just gives you pause. And you think to yourself, do I feel like it's getting cooler? And you say, yeah, it is definitely cooler. And if you weren't reminded about that, you might not, really perceive it.
Yeah.
And so then the app announces for, take pinhole projection pictures, look for sharp and fuzzy shadows, observe for animal changes, observe for changes in ambient light when you're getting really close to C2. And then finally, there's 3 calls to observe for shadow bands. Because the thing about shadow bands is it's really close to the eclipse, and the crescent is really fine in the sky. The crowd is really excited, and you're looking with your solar glasses up at that fine crescent in the sky. But to see shadow bands, you have to look to the ground.
Yeah.
You have to be reminded to look down. So people should bring a white sheet to their observing site and lay it out in front of them so they have a good white background to see the low contrast shadow bands.
That's exactly what I did in 2017. I had a white sheet out. Now, with my eyes, I could see it fairly good. I could see those shadow bands. But I tried to record my camera. I couldn't quite get it on my camera. You can see it not as well on the camera as you can with your own eyes, though.
Yeah, they're hard to video. They're really hard to video.
Now, I got a question, too. In 2017, I was dead on the center line.
Right.
And of course, once the totality happened, your app gives an announcement, look at the horizon.
Right.
And when you got a 360-degree horizon, it looks like a sunrise all around you.
Right.
Now, my question is, if you're not on the center line and you're off to one side, is one part of that circle more brighter than the other side, or?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it would be because you're a little closer to the edge of the umbra. So you're closer to the area where the light is coming into that penumbra. You're closer to the circumference of the light. So I think it would be a little asymmetrical. One side would be brighter but still colored, and one side would be darker but still colored. But you would still see the 360-degree colors.
Gordon, let me ask you a question, okay? Okay, it's actually up on the screen right now. I recently learned that the heat you feel from the sun is tens of millions of years old. Is that?
Well, so light from the sun travels at the speed of light. And since I guess the sun's about 96 million miles away, it takes about 9 minutes for light to get to us.
9 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's about 9 minutes if you do the math. So the light you're seeing happened, 8 to 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
So if the sun disappeared, we wouldn't know it for 8 to 9 minutes.
That's exactly right.
That's kind of where I was going with it. But I thought it was interesting that James was saying here that that the heat we're feeling is tens of millions of years old. So I was just wondering, if the sun burnt out, would we have tens of millions of years of heat and sunlight still? I guess not.
I don't know. I don't know where that number is coming from, to be honest with you.
Okay. I was just curious. It just popped into my head looking at that. So anybody in the chat have any specific questions for Dr. Gordon? Or do you want to just maybe you can pick out some more of your own slides and just kind of go through them with us?
I think most of the rest of those talks gets pretty deep into photography.
Okay.
I mean, gotcha. If people are not interested in that, I don't know if they'd be interested in. I think I hit the basics, which is basically what the contact times are. How you protect your eyes, and the partial phase phenomena. I think those are the most interesting
those really are the biggies. That would be the stuff that comes into my mind.
Especially for the family, that's watching the eclipse. Now, for the hardcore photographers, there's some deep stuff we can get into, and if anybody has a particular question, we can talk about that.
Well, one interesting thing that's happening at this eclipse is that the unknown factor as far as the weather.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what the weather's going to be, but everybody's we're getting to that point where people are starting to look at that weather pretty accurately.
Yeah.
And people say, well, what do I do? Well, you probably know as well as anybody. In fact, I'm sure you've done this. You've got a backup plan in case your number one spot is going to be cloudy. You got a second spot to go to.
That's right.
Now, what is your number one spot right now? Where you plan on being if the weather's good?
Yeah, so the place I've planned for a really long time is to be just northwest of Austin, Texas, in the wine country down there.
Ah,
And then my second spot is in Missouri. Now, I did that on purpose because, if you look at the weather fronts that go across the southern United States, you know that they generally travel in this little slant that goes from the southwest to the northeast. And they move usually to the east with a little bit of a northern slant. So the problem with this eclipse path is that shape of a weather front overlays the path. So hundreds of miles of the path could be under a bad weather front.
Yeah.
Which is not like it was in 17, because in 17, since it went from Oregon to South Carolina, that typical weather front was crossing the path at about 90 degrees. So, in 17, you could drive a couple of hundred miles to the west or the east and get on the other side of a weather front. But with this path and the typical weather fronts in the southwest, those weather fronts have a high chance of just overlaying the whole path, and it could be a disaster on eclipse
That
day.
could be a disaster. Yeah.
well, the way I look at it too, even if it does get clouded out, it's still going to get dark, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you're going to miss all the good stuff. But you will get to experience the darkness, the totality darkness of it all. And I guess the animals and crickets and everything will still react the same, won't they?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been clouded out in 5 eclipses, and I don't want to be clouded out this time.
Oh, you got a good record going then.
Yeah, but the weather in April is just shaky. And the thing is, the predicted weather was absolutely the best in Mexico for this eclipse. There's no question about it. I mean, the historical weather predictions by Jay Anderson, I think, had the percentage of cloud cover in Mexico being like about 10 or 15%. Wow. But I didn't want to change, I didn't want to make this eclipse an international travel eclipse. I mean, I've done those. Okay. They're a pain. And I can drive from Alabama to Texas, or Missouri, and I'm planning on bringing a lot of gear because since I can drive to this eclipse, I can bring a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I didn't want to make this an international eclipse, but that may have been a mistake. We might have bad weather.
Well, let me ask you. We do have a question here about on the dots, looking for some photography advice, especially involving protecting camera sensor or other tips.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. I showed that slide before, which said you always put your certified solar filters on the front of your optics.
The front edge, yeah.
Yeah, the front of your optics. But now it's perfectly safe. In fact, you have to take your solar filters off about 20 to 30 seconds before second contact if you want to try to image the diamond ring and Bailey's beads. Yep. Now, the diamond ring and Bailey's beads are still a photographic entity. It's not something you're going to look at magnified with your eyes. But if you want to image it, you have to have your solar filter off at 20 to 30 seconds before C2. That's perfectly safe for your optics and for your sensor, because the moon is moving so fast over that 20 seconds that the energy is going down each second. So it's not a big deal.
Okay.
And then you image all through totality without your solar filter on. And then you start to image about 10 seconds before C3, and you image for about another 20 seconds as you go through Bailey's beads, to diamond ring. Okay. Now, my app is a great photographic aid too, because I announce all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So my app says hands on solar filters at 30 seconds before C2. And at 20 seconds, it says remove solar filters. So it reminds you to pull them off. There are a lot of people in 2017 who left their solar filters on through all of totality, and they didn't realize it. And they got home and all their pictures were black. So my app reminds you to remove your solar filter. Gotcha. And then when it starts to count down to C3, there's a call that says 10 seconds. The first call is 20 seconds to third contact, or third contact in 20 seconds. And then there's 10 seconds. At 10 seconds, you start taking pictures again, and you take pictures through all of that brightness that comes out when the photosphere comes out the other side, and you take pictures for about 20 seconds, and then my app says replace camera filters, and you put your filter back on, and you get ready to take the rest of the sequence of the partial phases.
Okay.
One of the talking about filters, one of the things I like they've done this year, of course, smartphones are more prevalent now than they were even in 2017.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And what I did in 2017 on my video camera, I actually got a pair of the solar glasses and cut them in half and just put the glass and taped it up to my camera.
Right.
Now they've got these little flat ones you can put on your smartphone.
Yeah.
So now you can do smartphone photos of it. But yeah, you definitely have to have a filter on during the partial.
Yeah.
You don't want. But
yeah, and you know what I tell people when I do talks on that, when I tell people that who want to take pictures with their phones, and obviously millions of people are going to do that. I do tell people to invest in one of those little cheap phone holders that has a little 1/4 thread on the bottom, so you can still put your phone on a tripod.
Yes,
because you can't take a good picture of even the partial phases handheld. I mean, you just can't. So you should try to use one of those inexpensive phone clip holders, put it on a tripod, and take your pictures stabilized. They'll come out much better.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to, if we're not clouded out, is the fact that in 2017 the sun was at solar minimum.
Right.
And now this time around we're at solar nearing solar maximum, which means we're going to see more activity on the corona. What is that called? With the little purple? I forgot what you call that. The little sun, the things coming off the sun.
The prominences.
Prominences. Yes.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So my eclipse in 2001 was at solar maximum. The thing that happens at solar maximum is generally the corona is more symmetrical. You're less likely to have like a really weird spike at one side or the other. And the corona tends to be a little brighter. Now, I don't know that from personal experience. I do know the symmetry thing. But Fred Espinick talks about the fact that the corona during solar maximum is a little bit brighter. I mean, a little bit brighter. And it should be more symmetrical.
Now, doesn't the corona shine about, what was that, 2 to 3 times the width of the sun?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be more than that. I mean, with your eyes, you can probably see the corona out 3 or 4 solar radiuses.
Okay.
With long exposure eclipse photography that's guided or tracked, you can take a 4-second corona picture. And then if you do high dynamic range image processing, you can see corona out to 10 or 12 solar diameters when those guys really process those pictures.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, I apologize. I keep having to turn and cough. I hope it's not coming through the mic too loud, because I've had a pretty bad cold for 3 days on medications and stuff, and trying to stay in bed when I can. Anyway, so Dr. Rick had a question up here. He missed the ice safety thing. And he also asked, number 2, will he see anything here in New Jersey on the ocean?
Yeah, so just like my experience as a kid, there'll be a partial phase in New Jersey at the shore. I don't know what the percentage is offhand. I mean, maybe 50% or something like that. And again, like we talked about earlier, my app will time the partial eclipse, so he can geolocate there and get the exact times of first contact and mid eclipse and fourth contact. And the app will count down the percentages for him. And then since there's never a totality in New Jersey, you have to wear your solar glasses for the entire thing. There's never a time where you can take your glasses off.
Okay, well, Sir James Bowie Sinatra Lenny White Lennon's asking, Dr. Gordon, is there a reason why an eclipse happens?
Sure. I mean, if you picture the Earth and the moon going around the sun's on one side of us. So the Earth and the moon are constantly casting a shadow behind us. I mean, constantly. So you can think of it very simplistically as when that moon's shadow strikes the Earth, or the Earth gets in the way of the moon's shadow, that's when the eclipse happens. But you got to realize that the moon is creating a shadow every day, all day long. It's always making a shadow. We just have to get into it. We have to be struck by it. And that's when an eclipse happens. Now, an eclipse has to happen at a new moon because the moon has to be directly in line between the sun on one side and the earth on the other side. But there are some months in the new moon that we don't have an eclipse. You don't have an eclipse every month because sometimes the shadow of the moon will miss the earth low, and sometimes the shadow of the moon will miss the earth high. But when it is in alignment both vertically and horizontally, that umbra will strike the earth and we have an eclipse.
Well, that's the moon, because now, well, like you said, it doesn't happen every month because the moon is kind of at a 5-degree angle. It doesn't go around the equator. It's at an angle. So most of the time that shadow is shooting away from the earth.
That's exactly right. Do you want me to go back to my slides and show some astronomy slides?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. It's good if you can kind of visualize it.
Yeah, because if the moon was at the equator, rotate around the equator, there could be a total eclipse all the time. Well, once the moon got between the sun and the earth.
Yeah. So here's how you have to kind of picture it. So the moon and the earth are constantly creating a shadow, right? Mm-hmm. The funny thing is the moon's shadow is just about the distance from the earth to the moon. So it varies a little bit. So that's why sometimes we can get an annular eclipse. An annular eclipse is when everything's aligned, but this tip of the shadow doesn't strike the earth. It's too short. So you see the distance from the moon to the earth is about 384,000 kilometers. But the moon varies in its distance in its elliptical orbit by this much. So sometimes it's not close enough to the earth for the tip of this shadow to hit the earth. And the moon's moving away from the earth at about 2.5 centimeters per year. So at 650 million years from now, it'll never be long enough to hit the earth and will not have total eclipses.
Wow.
But here's what I was talking about before. You have to be in line. So the moon has to be between the sun and the earth to get the eclipse. And again, if the shadow of the moon stops before it hits the earth, you're having an annular eclipse. If it hits the earth, you're having a total eclipse.
Okay.
Well, so an annular eclipse looks like this. You always see photosphere around the moon's diameter because the moon is smaller in angular diameter than the sun in the sky. But a total eclipse looks like this. So this is my annular sequence from New Mexico. So it's starting out here, becoming annular in the middle, and then going to fourth contact. And then this is my sequence from Argentina when the eclipse set into these mountains. So again, starting up here and setting into the mountains with totality in between. But here's what I wanted to get to. So this is what we're talking about, what Dan was talking about. So the moon's plane of its orbit is angled with the plane of the orbit of the Earth by about 5 degrees. Okay. And also its orbit is not circular. So it's so there are two things that can prevent you from having an eclipse. So if you look at it from a calendar perspective, there was a new moon in March, but we didn't have an eclipse. Because in March, the moon was south of the sun. It was lower than the sun. So its shadow couldn't hit us. And the month after the eclipse, there's a new moon. It's on the 8th again in May. But in May, the moon misses us high, so we can't have the eclipse. Okay. But the magic happens in April. Because in April on the new moon, everything is in alignment vertically and horizontally. So the moon can be on the ecliptic and move across the face of the sun. So that's the basic astronomy. Now, there's one simplified way to look at it here, too, is this is one step deeper, but you can think of these two orbits as interdigitated hula hoops, just to simplify it, angled by 5 degrees. And where these two hula hoops actually cross is called the node. There's a distance on each side of the node where there's a potential for the umbra to hit the Earth. So these are called the eclipse seasons. And it's about 12 degrees on each side of the node. So there's about 30 days, 32 days around this node where you can potentially have an eclipse if you really wanted to simplify it. So two things have to happen. You have to be at the node, and you have to be at a new moon, and then you can have an eclipse.
And that happens, what I understand, about once every year and a half, somewhere on the Earth.
Yeah, there's some kind of eclipse. There's about 2 to 3 eclipses a year of some form or another, total, annular, or partial.
Well, Gordon, we had some sort of like lunar eclipse just in the past week, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right. So lunar eclipses and solar eclipses are kind of in sequence with one another, because that's when things are kind of aligned. Right. So the lunar eclipse, the Earth is getting in the way of the moon, and in the solar eclipse, the moon is getting in the way in front of the Earth. Yeah, that's right.
In front of the Earth. I'm sorry.
Right.
This is fascinating, I think. I'm really enjoying hearing all of this. This is great.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like talking about Ozzy Osbourne too. But I mean, this is fascinating. I'm really enjoying it, because you just don't get to experience this every day. Yeah, this is great. I want to thank all the new people I'm seeing here tonight. Ashamud and Zeke and several new people I've been seeing, and appreciate all of you, and appreciate all of you that started out as a Michael Nolan subscriber, and however you found the show, you're all appreciated so much.
Yeah,
show's been growing, and yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I see my old friend Greg Richards out there. He was an old shipmate of mine
many
years ago in the Navy. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw him too. I think I said hi to him. Yeah, anybody new, I just want to give him a nice shout out. So Gordon, now, so you're a physician?
Yeah, I'm a plastic surgeon.
Oh, you're a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
Oh, is it more cosmetic like, or just from injuries, or all of it, or?
So, this is a good question. Actually, my specialty in plastic surgeon, I did extra training in breast reconstruction after breast cancer cases.
Okay.
So my specialty is actually reconstruction of women after breast cancer.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Awesome. I had I shouldn't even bring it up. Just somebody I knew on Facebook, and her breasts were like leaking, and it was kind of poisoning her or something, from the way she described it. And she had all that repaired,
Yeah.
taken out and redone. And yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there's definitely complications no matter what you do. We were doing a huge interior remodel in Morro Bay. I'm 11 miles from the coast as the crow flies, where I live in the West Hills here of Atascadero, California. And the couple whose home we were working on, she had breast cancer. We didn't know it initially. I walked in one day, and I also have an asbestos removal contractor's license. One of the hardest tests I've ever taken. But anyway, I took that, and I got my asbestos removal license. We did a few asbestos jobs. It was really because we had a recession going, and things were really slow, and I was just looking for anything I could do. And this kind of stuff, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. So anyway, I walked in one day, and they were all peeling up all this tile off the floor, the kind of tile that looks, the 9x9s that look like they're made out of asbestos. I go, oh my God, did you guys have that tested? And at that point, I had no idea she'd ever had cancer. And I go, well, no, why? I go, because I would have guessed that probably has asbestos in it. And boy, if you would have seen their reaction when I said that. And so I sampled it and sent it to the lab, and actually it didn't have asbestos.
Oh, that's
in
good.
It.
Yeah.
But what we did find in the attic was all of the ductwork was insulated with asbestos.
Oh, wow.
And my wife, who had also gotten certified as an asbestos supervisor, her and I just took all that stuff out together, bagged it up, and got rid of it. But anyway, we did a few jobs. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of asbestos, when I was in the Navy, I was exposed to asbestos. I was exposed to Agent Orange.
Oh, I can imagine.
In fact, I got a claim going right now with the VA about that Agent Orange stuff.
Oh, dude. Oh, I think I heard you say something about that. Yeah, they contacted you. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, all my heart issues. So I'm pretty sure
that's
probably related.
That's exactly what we talked about. Yeah. Yeah. So Gordon, so you're into plastic surgery,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I can almost like entertain a mini.
Hey, Dan, do you want to skip ahead and look at some of that weather stuff I was talking about?
Sure. Yeah.
I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Let me share my screen again.
Yeah, a lot of people. A lot of people are concerned about the weather now since it's getting close.
I'm way concerned.
Let's ask about Ozzy's take on the eclipse. Yeah, that's a great idea, Eric.
I subscribe to AccuWeather Professional, and there's a guy in my group who's coming with me who is an AccuWeather meteorologist. So he'll be helping, follow the weather for us to show you where to go. So this is the 4 cloud panel that these guys follow. They have additional stuff. So it's low level clouds, mid level clouds, high clouds, and total clouds. So if we go to 1 p.m. This Sunday today, that's what the forecasts are. So then it can go into the future. So it has modeling that predicts how these are going to move. So, if you look at Texas, my 2 interesting states are Texas and Missouri, right? So if you skip ahead to Monday at 1, Texas and Missouri are completely clouded out. The top of Maine is clear. And then if you go to Tuesday, Texas starts to clear. And if you go to Wednesday, we wish the eclipse was this Wednesday because Texas is clear, Missouri is clear. Thursday, Texas is still clear. Friday, you see this front coming in down here. So even Mexico would be in trouble on Friday. Wow. Yeah. So
that's ugly.
It's a problem. And then here we go. This is Saturday. Mexico and Texas are clouded out. I might have a half a chance in Missouri right here, maybe, not too bad. Then Sunday at 1, Mexico, Texas looks pretty bad. So some of these Texas clouds, though, you see some of them are low level. There's none at the mid level, and then there's some at high level. So these could be high cirrus clouds with a little mixture of some low stuff in it. Maybe it wouldn't be terrible. So like if you look at this total cloud cover for Sunday, it may be worse looking on the maps than the actual conditions on the ground. And that's that's why I'm going to rely on my AccuWeather meteorologist to really figure this out more, because they have more data. And then eclipse day at 1 p.m. So you can see there's low level clouds in Texas. My secondary site in Missouri looks a little bit better. A lot of mid-level clouds, a lot of high clouds. Eclipse day right now in Texas is a problem. Now, again, it's too early, though. This could all change. It changes every day. And you never know. This little clear area right here might start to accelerate and move into Texas by next Monday. You just don't know. So, my meteorologist guy thinks he could make the definite call by 4 or 5 days before the eclipse. So I'll decide on where I'm going to go probably on Thursday morning of next week. And I'm either going to Missouri or Texas. But if it's like this, I can't get to New York State. I can't get up here. That's just too far. I can't make it. So I'll be clouded out.
So the worst would be like the lower level cumulus, right?
Yeah,
No.
I don't know what the levels are here. So like, I don't know what
Oh,
height in the atmosphere they're looking at for this. I don't know how to hone down
okay,
on all of
okay,
these,
okay.
you
So
know,
I know from being like a pilot,
yeah,
the cumulus were always like, 3,500, 5,500, 6,500 feet,
yeah,
and they're pretty dense,
they're really,
Rain,
really dense. Yeah,
they're rain clouds basically, and
yeah.
like the cirrus were always high and a little more dissipated.
That's right. And you can take eclipse pictures through, light cirrus clouds, even
Yeah,
medium
I can
cirrus
see
clouds.
that. Yeah,
The one thing you want to do is increase your shutter speeds a little bit or decrease your shutter speeds so that you're letting a little more light in, because it will
gotcha.
affect your
Right,
exposures.
right,
But you can
right.
get away with it. In fact, there's some beautiful eclipse pictures out there of the eclipse taken with some scattered high clouds around it,
Hmm.
high cirrus clouds. But you're right, those mid-level cumulus clouds, they're thick. I mean, they're going to
They're
block the
thick.
view.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, see, that's
Okay,
something that's
that's
something I'm good.
interesting.
That's one thing I'm concerned about too. When the weather, when it looks like we get clouded out, there's so many people that have already made plans. They're going to go towards the center line, and some of them are going to have backup. So I think the day of the eclipse, if there's clouds, there is going to be traffic like you would not believe. It's going to be.
No,
I have a feeling it's going to be gridlock in some areas. I know you said you're going down to the hill country area of Texas.
Yeah,
That is going to be an issue down there. I think that's going to be a heart of a lot of traffic. That's going to be
it is.
yeah.
because the infrastructure isn't set up for that many people.
It's not. And so look at the difference between these two guys, though. So here's Monday at 1. And remember we talked about this little stripe of clear
Yeah.
weather right here? Look at Tuesday
Okay.
at 1. See, that makes Texas look a lot better. In fact,
yeah.
around
Yeah.
Austin is clear there. So if this all accelerates a little bit and it comes through a day early, we'll be in good shape in Texas.
Yeah.
Boy, this is a really risky business, isn't it?
Oh, it's brutal.
I can see that. Now, Dan, you had some issues. Was it last year or the year before? There was so many people trying to get online that the system was kind of crashing, wasn't it?
On what now?
Well, it was access to the internet and 5G and all that stuff that you were setting up.
Well, yeah, and that's going to be an issue this time around too. If say there's clear skies and everybody's looking at the eclipse, they're afraid that a lot of the cell systems going to be shutting down. It's going to be overloaded.
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing. And a lot of people are just kind of laughing about it, thinking this isn't a big deal. This is a big deal. This is a real big deal.
Well, look at all the preparation, time and money that's gone into this. Yeah.
Oh, talk about the money aspect. I read an article the other day that this will be the most money Texas has ever made in 22 minutes.
Because that's great.
It's going to take 22 minutes from the time it enters Texas till it leaves Texas. And I forgot 160 million. It had to be more than that. But there are a lot of people taking advantage of the situation out there too. I've seen a lot of price gouging on things, and
yeah,
I mean $200 for a parking spot.
Yeah,
Dr. Rick, thank you.
Yeah, one other thing about that, Dan, I'll just a plug for my app. My app runs without internet service.
Yes.
So and I did that on purpose. So the calculation for doing the contact times is in the app. It does not have to go out to the internet to get that data. So once you've purchased, the 2024 Eclipse, which is $1.99 for the data set. I mean, it's ridiculously cheap. It's the cost of one set of Eclipse glasses. That data is in the app. So as long as your phone can geolocate, even if it has to use the satellites, and it'll use the satellites, I mean, I've tested it, you can time the eclipse. So if all of the cell service crashed, as long as you've already purchased the app and used it, so you've loaded the data set once, that data set is in the app and you're golden. You will not miss it because it will work without internet. Have you seen
other, I haven't seen too many other timer apps, but I know there's a couple out there that I haven't even looked at, but do you think that, if they require internet service or? I think the one that just got released it's actually just came out a few weeks ago. They've kind of missed the golden opportunity, is kind of,
it's kind of a timing app. It's not as sophisticated as mine, but it's also a mapping app, and it's also a weather app. So it kind of, monitors the weather for locations too. So that has to go out to the internet. It couldn't do it locally. Yeah. And there was an app in 2017 that was a mapping app to try to help you get closer to the line of totality. That relied on the internet too, and that crashed in some places along the 2017 path. But my app continued to work because it's always been free of needing to use the internet for the data calculations.
Yeah,
I see.
Oh, like I said, everybody, whether you're in totality or you're in partial, get this app. I mean, it's great. I mean,
let me put that site back up here again.
And it's the best $1.99 I've ever spent. I mean, come on. What's $1.99?
Yeah, here's the site. Here's the website.
Or you can just go straight to, you visit a site and then you go straight to the Google store. And
yeah, you can go to Apple or Google and just search for solar eclipse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the website.
You don't have to go to the website. Okay, that's good to know.
Dan, I'll tell you, it's I don't really care, but I will tell you that it's amazing how many complaints I get about the $1.99. I mean, people will troll me on the Google and Apple reviews over the $1.99. It's just crazy. I mean, if they knew the effort that goes into developing and supplying an app like this, they would just be amazed.
I can't even imagine.
I take it with a grain of salt. I don't get insulted, and I try to respond to them intelligently and calmly. But it is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I can understand that. I certainly wouldn't know where to begin. I'm glad there are people like you out there that can put it together.
Yeah, really.
Hey, you need a patio built? Call me. House built, whatever. But
all right.
So yeah, let's see. James 199. Let's see. What is he saying here?
2 sips of Starbucks coffee.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Well, this has been great. I mean, I've really enjoyed this. Maybe we should do an after show, see how it all turned out.
Yeah, if we have some clear weather.
Yeah, if we have some clear weather, right? That would be fun.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying I'm going to try to get a lot of shots of it if we got a clear shot of it. I'm going to.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to have my drone. I'm going to take my drone up and try to get a good shot of the shadow going towards us. And in my location, the sun is going to be at 64 degrees.
Right.
And luckily, my drone can only look up at 60 degrees. So I'm not worried about putting a filter on my drone. I'm just looking for the shadow.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but really wide angle lenses don't get affected by that. So, you'll see a lot of people will sit a GoPro on the ground behind them with no solar filter, and they'll video the partial phases going through totality into the partial phases at the end. You don't have to worry about it with those wide angle cameras. It doesn't concentrate the energy enough.
Okay. In fact, I got my wide angle lens for my drone today, so I'm going to try that out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. You must have a pretty good drone.
I've got 2 of them now.
Hey, did we talk through the whole music session?
No, we're going to do that here in a minute.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and skip to that now then. And thanks so much. So I've got.
Well, I got a question first before we go to it.
Okay.
Gordon, do you have a song that's related to Eclipse or the moon that's one of your favorites?
That's so funny. I know a lot of people, talk about Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie
Tyler.
Yeah, Bonnie Tyler. That's always a good one. And I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, so Dark Side of the Moon is one of my favorite albums. So
and that comes with Brain Damage and Eclipse.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I like that one. Also, I think another one I like, it's kind of old, is there's a couple of them. Fly Me to the Moon.
Yeah.
Dean Martin.
And what was
Frank Sinatra. I'm sorry, Frank Sinatra.
The Andy Williams had one too. Oh, Blue Moon.
Blue Moon, yeah. And I think Elvis's was Blue Moon over Kentucky or something like that. anyway, I have that stuff here. I'm gonna bring some of these little pictures up that I took, and we'll still be able to chat and see each other and stuff. But the first one I was going to show was Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album cover. I've got 2 copies of that. One's an OG, an original pressing, and another one's the remastered copy. And I love that album. It's just fantastic. And like I said, it's got Brain Damage and Eclipse on it. And so anyway, then the next one I was going to show was going to be Soundgarden. Yeah, Soundgarden.
Black Hole Sun.
Black Hole Sun. That's exactly right, Dan. What a great song that was, right? I mean,
kind of a freaky video, but yeah, it's a good song.
It's a good song. Exactly. And then that was a good band too.
Chris Cornell.
Yeah. He sadly committed suicide, didn't he? Shot himself.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he shot himself, but he did commit suicide.
Yeah, maybe he didn't. I'm not sure either. Then we had the Police, Walking on the Moon. And then actually later on, Sting, I think in his first solo album, had another song related to this. Let's see if I can find it here somewhere. Well, I'll probably get to it. No, it's called Moon Over Bourbon Street. Sting had his first solo album had, like I said, Moon Over Bourbon Street. Yeah, Walking on the Moon. 6 years later, he wrote another Moon song. The first one, was with the Police, but then this one was his solo debut in 1985. The Dream of the Blue Turtles. Okay, so he basically had 2, and then we get to I almost can't say enough about Pink Floyd. They've got so much great stuff, And we had a show recently where we covered psychedelic music, and there's Pink Floyd is right in the middle of that big time, along with so many other bands that I love. It seems like as I went through that show and did my research, I was concluding that psychedelic music was pretty much my favorite genre. Let's see. Then we had Van Morrison. What is it? Marvelous Night for a Moon Dance. That is a great song. I have that. I've got the Pink Floyd 2 copies. I've got a Police double album greatest hits. Van Morrison Moon Dance. I have that, as well as I think about 6 other Van Morrison albums. I think on the Pink Floyd, I have Dark Side of the Moon. I have Another Brick in the Wall, and then I have about 5 CDs, of various albums of theirs. Okay, and then of course the Beatles had a couple, Mr. Moonlight was on their 4th. Well, this is Abbey Road. This is actually
Here Comes the Sun.
Here Comes the Sun. And then their 4th album, Beatles for Sale, had the Mr. Moonlight on it.
Yeah, and what I've heard, that song was very forgettable.
Yeah. You know what? It was not at all memorable for me when I was reading this stuff.
I listened to it, and it wasn't very memorable.
No. And of course, here we have Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart. Mm-hmm. What a big hit that was when it was out. It was huge. This was another great one here. Cat Stevens' Moonshadow.
That's probably one of my favorites there.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite too. Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead and get to Ozzy Osbourne's "Bark at the Moon." I have that in blue vinyl. It was kind of one of these Friday specials, at Walmart where everything was on sale, and I went up there and bought 6 or 7 albums. Brought them home, and at least half of them were warped really bad. And I brought them all back, and they let me replace them all. But the blue marble, it's pretty cool looking.
I think it was so cool what Ozzy did in the 2017 Eclipse, where he was in the Path of Totality, and they timed
that concert. Yeah,
they timed it perfectly. Where he was singing "Bark at the Moon" right when the eclipse happened. So that was pretty cool. Plus,
Right.
I knew a couple other bands that actually performed at that concert.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that's when Vinnie Paul was with the band Hell Yeah. He performed there, and a band that I actually hired once for my event, Texas Hippie Coalition. They performed there as well.
Gotcha. Well, another one, of course, these are all great bands, all favorites of mine. The Rolling Stones has Moonlight Mile on Sticky Fingers.
Oh, okay.
But also they put out Child of the Moon, which was recorded at the very start of Beggar's Banquet. Now, I don't think I have really any more pictures, but I was going to show this, though, Dan.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It started. Seconds.
There it is. Look at it.
No. 20 seconds.
Wow.
Oh my God, look at that.
Awesome.
10 seconds.
Oh, look at this.
Listen to the cicadas. You hear the cicadas?
Yeah. Look at the stars. There's Jupiter. Wow. 20 seconds until it's over.
I'm not seeing Mercury.
Here comes the diamond, the Bailey's Beach and the diamond ring. 3, 2, oh. Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow, it's like somebody just turned the lights on.
Took them both off? Yeah. Just one eyeball. Yes, they're taking both off.
Okay, so we did skip one of my favorite. I just did a show. My last show was on Creedence Clearwater Revival, and Bad Moon Rising. What a great song that is. In fact, I put that in my poll of favorite Creedence songs. It didn't take first, second, or third place, but people liked it. I love that song.
Yeah, now that video we just watched, that was what I shot in 2017.
Yeah,
and if you notice, if you listen real careful, you could actually hear Gordon Zapp in the background telling me what to do.
Right.
Cool. And
yeah.
Did you hear those cicadas? Those cicadas got really loud.
Oh, I wasn't sure what that was, but
definitely.
So anyway, we've got as far as like other songs that I took note of, we have Paul Simon, Sing About the Moon. That was his 1983 album, Hearts and Bones. Then we have Iron Maiden's Moonchild. That was the opening track on Iron Maiden's 1988 concept album, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Cat Stevens' Moonshadow, we already talked about that. Okay, there's a band called The Firm, okay, and this was an interesting power band. It was featuring 1980 supergroup, okay. Jimmy Page, Paul Rogers ended their self-titled 85 debut album with this 9-minute slow-building rocker that started life in Page's old band, Led Zeppelin, and that was called Midnight Moonlight. And they put that song out as The Firm. And I read a story about Robert Plant sitting in the audience watching his old bandmate up there playing with this supergroup with tears in his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
But that was kind of interesting. But anyway, so you got Elvis Presley, Blue Moon Over Kentucky. You knew Elvis had to have a song with the moon, and he's probably got two or three. So anyway, so Blue Moon over Kentucky.
He really liked the color blue. He also had blue Hawaii and blue suede shoes. And
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Genesis had Dancing with the Moonlit Night. That's when they were entering their peak prog period when they released their 5th album. The Mothers of Invention, Frank Zappa's Mothers of Invention, had Concentration Moon. Go ahead.
Yeah, which is pretty cool too. He also named his daughter Moon Unit.
Yeah, Moon Unit. That's right. That's right. What a trippy name, right? Hey, Moon Unit. Wow. I bet she hated that. I bet you. Okay, so then we had the Mother's Invention had Concentration Moon, and that was kind of a it was kind of a continuation of the group's takedown of right-wing politics. I mean, as I said, this was in the period of there was no Republicans and Democrats. There was the establishment, and then there was us. They hated us. We hated them back. It was all about the counterculture back then. Summer of Love, 67, San Francisco, and other places across the country. So anyway, it was kind of a continuation of the counterculture and specific to pop culture moments. And it was also, it was a parody of Sgt. Pepper's in some respects, this song was. Anyway, Dennis Wilson put out Moonshine. The late Beach Boy drummer released only one solo album before his 83 death at the age of 39, and that was 1977's Pacific Ocean Blue. It's a laid-back, expertly arranged, and better than anything his group was doing at the time. Moonshine was the song. Radiohead put out Sail to the Moon. They even named their 2016 album a moon-shaped pool after it.
Hey, Royce, can you drop that graphic?
Let's see. Which one do you want to? Oh, the one I have up there now. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
I
can't see you.
Oh, okay. Janis Joplin had Half Moon. She was making that last album, which this was on right up to the time of her death. October 4th, 1979. She was only 27 years old. She's a member of the 27 Club. All these great artists that died at 27. Very sad. Neil Young, Harvest Moon. It's a great album. Then you had U2 had Hawk Moon 269. King Crimson, Moon Child. That was a 12-minute epic from King Crimson's debut album, Moonchild. Harry Nilsson, his masterpiece of an album. Harry Nilsson was great friends with John Lennon. They all hung out at Alice Cooper's Hollywood Vampires Club. Alice Cooper was the president, and Keith Moon was the vice president. And you talk about craziness and shenanigans. Harry Nilsson was a charter member. The whole room of the Rainbow Club, Rainbow Bar and Grill downtown Hollywood, was reserved just for them. They were the only ones allowed to go up there, them and their friends. And whenever Harry Nilsson, John Lennon was in town, he'd come and he'd always hung out with Harry Nilsson. He loved Harry Nilsson. They were great friends. Harry Nilsson taught John Lennon to drink brandy Alexanders. And they got in a lot of trouble doing that. And Keith Moon, they all showed up. Part of the fun of showing up at the club was to see what Keith Moon might wear. He'd go around to all the costume shops around the Hollywood and LA area. He might come in dressed as the Queen of England, a French maid. It was quite a character. And there was one night they went down to the Whiskey A Go-Go, and it was John Lennon completely out of his mind on brandy Alexanders and some other things, as I understand, with his buddy Harry Nilsson. And they started heckling, or John Lennon started heckling and insulting the Smothers Brothers who were performing, and they actually got kicked out. Okay. So that was Nelson Schmelson, and great friends with John Lennon. They called that John Lennon's Lost Weekend when him and Yoko Ono was split up, and he showed up in LA with her, I think it was her publicist or assistant, May Pang, I think was her name. And they call it a lost weekend, but it lasted 2.5 years. And the whole time he hung out with Alice Cooper and all the crazies at the drinking club. Then we had Thin Lizzy, Dancing in the Moonlight.
Hey, Dan, I'm going to
go
I'm going
ahead.
to sign out. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank
Hey.
you so much, Gordon.
Yeah.
We
No, I
really
appreciate it.
having you here.
Thank you,
It
Gordon.
was a lot of fun having you here.
Yeah. Thanks
All
for the
right.
opportunity. I appreciate it. Have a good night,
yeah.
guys. All right.
Take
Thank
care,
you,
man.
Gordon. Yeah,
Okay.
come back,
All right.
would you?
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye.
Michael Nolan's in here again. Yeah, anybody wanna pop in now while we're just discussing music? Yes, we have gone over on time. That's what happens sometimes. I thought it might be a short one, but this could have gone on for hours, really. To be right, Dan. I mean, there was so much to talk about, so many slides if people had more questions and things. And I'm going to put a link up right now. I know there was a couple of people that wanted to join, and somebody wants to join, you're welcome to. There's the link. So anyway, getting back to these celestial and moon related songs, I had Thin Lizzy, Dancing in the Moonlight. Okay, and let's see. Then we got Beck, Blue Moon. Everybody has a blue moon. Grateful Dead, Mountains on the Moon. Okay. Los Lobos, Kiko and the Lavender Moon. I bet Michael Nolan knows all about that one. Moonshine can pee paint. I suppose. Moon the Loon. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Keith Moon. We called Moon the Loon. He was such a crazy, out of control sucker. Let me see. James Watson. I'm dressed like a French maid right now.
Uh-oh.
That's great.
No pictures, please.
Caitlin scoots away from James. All those wonderful summer nights, the moon with shroons and Junes. That's right, Michael. And there's my link. And what do we have here? We have Sir James Lenny Ono Bono.
Yes, it's me. Haha. And you know this one. Let's swim to the moon. Uh-huh. Let's climb through the tide. Penetrate the evening that the city sleeps to hide. Let's
Okay, no,
swim out
it
tonight.
just started to sound familiar. I think you got in tune there for a minute.
Moonlight Drive.
That's
Doors.
great. Okay, so then we had the Doors, Moonlight Drive,
Mhm.
and I love the Doors. All of these bands I like. The Black Crowes, Black Moon Creeping. Talking Heads, Moon Rocks.
Ah.
Let's see what else. What else we got up here in the chat?
Did we
Yeah,
mention? Did we mention "Dancing in the Moonlight" by?
Yeah, Cat
yeah.
Stevens. Cat Stevens, wasn't it?
Is it Cat Stevens?
Yeah. The other one was.
Well, he's got Moon Shadow.
Moon Shadow. Oh wait. Maybe I got it backwards.
I'm thinking King Harvest. Is that King Harvest?
I don't know. But we have the White Stripes. The White Stripes, White Moon. AC/DC. Who's excuse me. This cough is just. Who's next to the moon? Bob Dylan, Moonlight. Let me see. Sting, Moon Over Bourbon Street. I mentioned that earlier when I mentioned the Police song with Moon in it. Tom Waite, Drunk on the Moon. Leave it to Tom Waite to find something intoxicating in our favorite little orbiter, the Moon.
Wow.
Yeah, excellent 74 album, The Heart of Saturday Night. He sounds pretty much like this thought out the LP, but the jazzy ballad is all last call romanticism. Okay, whatever. Chuck Berry, Havana Moon.
Oh yeah.
And Havana Moon was a little break for him. It wasn't as rock or R&B or blues as his other stuff. It was penned during the Latin music boom of the early 50s. You can hear its influences throughout this simple track, Havana Moon.
Ooh.
I'm gonna have to listen to that. REM, Man on the Moon.
Oh yeah.
Man on
Oh,
the
yeah.
Moon. Yeah, all about If You Believe They Put a Man on the Moon, that song. That was a good song. Fleetwood Mac, Sisters of the Moon.
Oh yeah. I've read something about that where they asked Stevie Nicks what that song is about. She says, "I don't have a clue." So she had no
Really?
idea what that song is about.
Okay. Often viewed as Lindsey Buckingham's crowning mad genius moment with Fleetwood Mac, a result of her long stretches of studio isolation and track tweaking. Stevie Nicks' Sisters of the Moon comes from a different place, an actual band song that came out of a rare group jam at the time. Well, that's kind of interesting story right there. And then Frank Sinatra, Fly Me to the Moon and Let Me Gaze Among the Stars. What is that? What does it say next? Let me see what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. I'd love to hear Miss Piggy sing Moonlight Drive.
Well, I can't do Miss Piggy.
Yeah. Well, guys, the show, the Eclipse part of the show, I thought it was very, very interesting. I learned so much. It actually took probably maybe twice as long as I thought, and it sounded to me like with all of those clips and stuff, depending on what kind of questions we were asking him, it could have taken another hour. Yeah. So we're looking at after 8 o'clock right now. The Doors, Moonlight Drive. Yeah, we brought that up, and it is great. I agree.
And an Elton John song that gets overlooked, "Dark Side of the Moon."
Elton John song, you say?
Yeah, Dark
Side
of the Moon.
Oh, wow! I did not. That's overlooked by me for sure. And I got a fair amount of Elton John. I actually have 2 copies of Yellow Brick Road. I couldn't find a good clean copy, so I bought a new remastered. And then
I got the remastered one too.
And that same week, I found a perfect condition, clean original pressing. I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't pass that. That's what I'd been looking for 6 months, so I couldn't pass it up. I had to buy that too.
Paul McCartney had an album not related to the moon or eclipse, but celestial items. Venus and Mars Are All Right Tonight. There's another one.
Oh, yeah. This is crazy. I couldn't sleep last night with my cold. I was coughing. My nose was running. So I was looking for a video to watch. I'm all streaming now. I don't have like Dish Network or Spectrum or one of those. We're all streaming. So I've just got a DVD player in my bedroom. So I was looking for a DVD to play, and I found the trilogy by Star Wars. So I watched the first episode of Star Wars in the middle of the night last night when I should have been sleeping. Huh. And they had the Death Star that looks like a big moon.
That's no moon; it's a space station.
Right. There's
a movie from the 70s. Never seen it, but the title is perfect for what we're talking about. Brother, Sun, Sister Moon.
Brother, Sun, Sister Moon. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Well, here's a good one in the chat. House of the Rising Sun.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God. One of my all-time favorite songs. I can't believe I didn't think about that.
Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying.
There you go.
Elton John, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me.
Yeah, I love that song.
Oh, yeah. There's three sun ones right there. I didn't have anything from the sun. It was all moon stuff. But I can't believe I didn't have House of the Rising Sun, being such a big fan of that song. And actually having seen Eric Burden in concert about 12 years ago on the Laughlin River Run in a very small venue. I think the seats were $37 a piece.
Wow.
And my wife and I, she rode the Laughlin with me, and we're walking down the street. I picked up one of these little flyers out of the newsstand to tell you what's going on in Laughlin this week. And right across the street, Eric Burden was playing. I could not even believe it. Small venue. I mean, we were all standing up when he did House of the Rising Sun. We're all singing at the top of our lungs. Everybody loves that song. Groovy Lisa, Sunshine of Your Love. There you go. The Cream. Cream. Sunshine of Your Love. Dun, 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 dun.
Hey, I saw James Watson saying, "Here comes the sun." Here comes the sun. Sun King. Now, is that the song by the Cult?
No, that's the Beatles.
Well, the Cult has a song similar to that. I have to look that up.
And there's Sunshine on My Shoulders.
John Denver. I just watched the John Denver Not a documentary, but it was a movie, but it was like supposed to be a true movie about his life. That was really interesting. He was a big star, but RCA dropped him. He wasn't quite, new owners took over, and they were just looking for real super heavyweights. And I guess he was a little too mellow for him. They dropped him. He was bummed about that. And then he had it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was done.
I was thinking, the Cult does have a song called Sun King.
Oh, I never knew that.
Cult?
Yeah.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, I saw the Cult in concert once. They're really good.
I haven't seen them. Yeah, a lot of good songs out there. Well, I tell you what, folks, it's 8:14, and I think we're gonna sign off here. Michael Nolan, The Bottom Line, Hot as Sun by McCartney. There you go. There you go.
McCartney's also got another one called Sea Moon.
Yes.
Oh, Sea Moon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never realized how many songs were about planets and space and all that until you.
No, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Fly me to the moon and let me gaze among the stars.
There's James Watson's got another one. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. That's an easy one.
I'm going back to sleep. I need to go back to sleep. Hey, Ashaman, thanks for joining us, brother. I really appreciate it.
Now, there's an obscure one. Who just said that? Ashmed, Armadillo. Carly Simon, You're So
Carly
Vain.
Simon. Yeah, You're So Vain. Yeah.
There's one part of that song where it said you went up to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's right. Space Baby, The Tubes, Groovy Lisa, Black Hole Sun. Yeah, we showed Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and also Instant Karma. Instant
Okay.
Karma has, and we all shine on like the moon and the stars and the sun.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. Well, Dan, I want to thank you again for bringing Gordon, the eclipse expert. He's an MD, a plastic surgeon. I was really impressed when I heard that, and it came up with that solar eclipse timer and all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I could just see how complicated all that is. I got this cold that is just.
Gordon is the rock star of eclipses. So.
Yeah, no, that I feel honored that you brought him on the show. That was so damn amazing. Check out my latest video, folks. Want a psychedelic experience? Okay, I'm going to do that. Michael. Check out my latest video, folks. Absolutely. I've been sick, so I've been kind of slow to getting around to my friends' videos here the last few days. I mean, I don't think I even got out of bed yesterday. A couple of times maybe for short periods. I was just, I got to get rid of this thing. I got to get back to work. And
Royce, can you make me big for a second? I want to show you something.
Sure.
That'll be good for your cold.
Okay. Oops.
No, not me.
Oops.
Not you, me.
Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see.
That's okay. It's okay.
Where's the make you big button at? I haven't done this in a long time.
Oh.
No, not that one. See the little head on the bottom where you can see all of us?
Yeah.
Click on the head on my screen and it'll bring me up.
Okay, hold on. Click on the head on your screen.
Yeah, I see the little head there.
Oh yeah, I do.
Click there.
Okay.
Nope.
Damn. You are not getting bigger.
Well, you almost had it.
I'm going down the line, clicking on every single one of them. I used to do this all the time when we had a different show.
You see where
whoever was talking.
There you go.
I was looking in the wrong place. Okay, Halls. Yeah. No, that
extra strength. These are very good for colds. It's going to give you a nice cold sensation in your throat, and it's going to feel good in your lungs.
Come on.
Okay. Sorry about that. I wasn't even looking at our individual pictures. I was looking at all of these little screens below the picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Halls and it's menthol extra strength. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had those before. They're pretty strong too.
Yeah, this is the one. You don't want to get the cherry flavor, just the normal ones. You want these ones because
they're more of a menthol, like
these are the best ones.
Right.
Yeah, and as you can see, I have a whole box.
Oh my God!
I won't run out for. That's for sure.
No, I need to go get some. My wife brought me home some cold medication, some nasal spray, but some good old fashioned Halls.
All right,
I need some of that
small. Bad. Yeah, they're sugar-free ones. Yes, they are.
Okay.
And while I'm up here, I have a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
I was talking on Kate's the other night, and Michael Nolan's in. You just have to ask Chris Elliott if he wants in too. I was thinking on my channel, you, me, Chris Elliott, and Michael Nolan and Kate can do a Beatles roundtable, and we're all going to discuss Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. What do you think?
I'm in.
All right.
That is right up there with my favorite albums because of a story I have to go with it. But
all right, we'll do it on my channel.
We'll save that for your show.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to do that with you guys.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay, folks. I want to thank everybody that joined us tonight. I really appreciate each and every one of you. The show's growing. I appreciate all my new subscribers. We're at 6. Let's see. I chart this daily on my desk calendar. We're at 1,067 subscribers when the show started. And I've been doing a lot of shorts, and I've been getting a lot of subscribers from shorts. I covered this whole series of soul music shorts and some other shorts that I did, and they all did really Creedence Clearwater shorts, and all of them they just blew up my watch time and my views and my subscribers and everything. So I'm a firm believer in doing the shorts. But anyway, so thank you guys. I really appreciate you all, and appreciate all the support I've been getting. Show's been growing, been enjoying it. I love everybody that comes to chat and supports us and have fun. All you guys are like so educated when it comes to everything we're talking about, and that makes it really cool too. So anyway, we'll see you next week, and that's what's going on in Royce's World today. Thank you guys so much.
See you later.
Dan. Thanks, Dan.
See you later.
Thanks, Sir James.
You're welcome. My pleasure.